My brother died in a fire saving my 3 best friends. After that, they treated me like a shared responsibility, taking turns pretending to be my boyfriend. It didn't take long for them to grow tired of it. Robbie was the first to lose his patience. "I can't handle her attitude anymore," he snapped once. "Why don't we just send her to some mental hospital and be done with it?" Sean, always the mediator, sighed. "Just hold on a bit longer. Once we graduate, we'll marry her off to some guy and finally get our freedom." And Ian, my boyfriend at the time, said coldly, "I'm done. Help me figure out a way to make her dump me." So much for friendship. So much for the life they owed my brother. In the end, I was nothing but a burden to them. Fine, I thought. I'll give them exactly what they want. My birthday party went the same way it always did. Ian and the others had planned it, promising a surprise this year. I actually let myself look forward to it. But when the day arrived, the grand hall of the mansion was packed with strangers, loud, laughing, drunk strangers. I sat alone by the French windows, watching them through the glass, my face calm but cold. Robbie strolled over with a glass of milk in one hand, his other hand tucked into his pocket. His hair was slicked back, his shirt half unbuttoned, showing off his sculpted chest with every lazy movement. He had that same careless charm that drew people to him. I'd always hated it, but we'd broken up long ago. I had no reason and no desire to care anymore. He handed me the milk, lecturing me about how I should open up more and make new friends. The usual nonsense. This time, I didn't argue. I didn't even roll my eyes. He paused, startled. "What's wrong? Who upset our little princess this time?" I didn't answer right away. My eyes wandered across the room and landed on the young housekeeper, blushing as she talked to Ian. I stayed quiet.
"Calm."
"Nothing," I said evenly. "You're right." Robbie frowned slightly, uncertain whether to take my calmness as peace or warning. Then I pointed toward a man across the hall. "Who's that?" Robbie followed my gaze. The man stood out, tall, effortlessly elegant even in casual clothes. His posture spoke of confidence, the kind born from old money or deep self-assurance. "Oh, him?" Robbie said. "He's the new lecturer in our department. Also the school's guidance counselor." He chuckled and added that the guy was a hit with the female students, his classes always full, his office hours booked solid. "Not sure if he's there to teach or to flirt," he muttered. The more Robbie tried to mock him, the more curious I became. "What's his name?" I asked. Robbie froze, eyes narrowing a little as if to gauge my interest. He forced a light laugh. "Why do you want to know?" I didn't answer. At that moment, the music shifted into a slow, romantic tune, and couples began to dance. Across the room, Ian caught the housekeeper's stumble, his hand still on her waist long after he'd steadied her. She looked up at him, flustered, and he didn't look away. For a moment, they were a perfect still frame. Two people wrapped in unspoken tension. Robbie and the others knew I couldn't stand that. In the past, if any of them even smiled at another girl, I'd spiral into jealousy and rage until my words cut deep enough to drive them away. They learned to avoid other women, not out of loyalty, but out of exhaustion. Eventually, that became their favorite way to escape me. It was always the same, a little flirting, a little distance, and I would explode. They'd play the innocent ones, accuse me of being insecure, unstable. And I would crumble under the guilt, apologize, cry myself to sleep for nights, and finally, I'd be the one to end it, setting them free. They always pretended to be regretful, but I knew better. Now Ian was pulling the same trick. I watched him with the housekeeper. My chest tightened, but there was no anger left, only emptiness. If freedom for me was what they all wanted, I would grant it. I stared at Ian until he felt my gaze and began to turn toward me. That's when I stood up and walked away. I knew my reputation at school was terrible, so terrible that it must have taken Robbie and the others an almost superhuman effort to convince this many people to show up for my birthday. From the moment the guests arrived, no one acknowledged me. They treated it like any ordinary college party. No birthday wishes. No gifts. Nothing. I didn't care. I walked straight up to the handsome new lecturer and held out my hand. My voice left no room for refusal. "Tell me your name." Then asked me to dance. He blinked in surprise. A small, crimson mole near the corner of his eye peeked out behind his glasses, giving him a playful, almost mischievous look. Around us, conversations faltered. I half expected him to refuse. Perfect justification for a scene, for throwing everyone out. This was Ian's plan, I reminded myself. Isolate me, humiliate me. Why would anyone treat me kindly? But he smiled. His eyes were soft, gentle. He took my hand without hesitation. I'm Kian Archer, he said, his voice warm. Happy birthday, Nina. It stung. I jerked my hand back, expecting some prank. But when I looked at his other hand, it held a small, neatly wrapped gift box. No malice. No tricks. Just a gift. I blinked, heart racing. My throat tightened, and for the first time tonight, I felt completely unmoored. Kian didn't flinch. He extended his hand again, voice quiet, inviting. May I have this dance? I had tried to command him, yet he treated it as his choice. Patient. Polite. Calm. Even as if my games or rejection didn't matter in the slightest. I studied him for a long moment. Finally, I lifted my hand. Just as his fingers brushed mine, a loud crash rang out. Gasps cut through the room. Instinctively, I turned. Ian was near me, holding the housekeeper steady once again. She had stumbled yet again. Her name, Rosie, finally clicked. Her mother, our live-in housekeeper, had brought Rosie to live with us years ago, without asking. I had reluctantly agreed, out of respect for her mother. Until tonight, Rosie had been invisible, quiet, unnoticeable. But now, she had made herself impossible to ignore. I'm so sorry. I'll clean this up right away. Rosie's face was crimson as she bowed, kneeling to pick up broken glass. Ian moved to protect her. Don't use your hands. You'll cut yourself, he said gently. Rosie looked up at him, eyes wide with trust. I stayed silent, watching. And then I saw it. Why are you wearing my dress? Every eye in the room turned toward Rosie. She wore a stunning, strapless gown that hugged her figure. No one would have guessed she was just the help. It took me a moment, but a memory hit. My brother had bought that dress for me. I narrowed my eyes, and Rosie's face drained of color. Tears filled her eyes instantly as she clutched the fabric. I thought you wouldn't wear it, so it looked too nice to just leave. Her voice trembled, small and fragile. Lies. I had made it clear years ago that anything from my brother's gifts was untouchable. This wasn't discarded. It was stolen. Take it off, I said, voice low and dangerous. Rosie froze, one tear spilling down her cheek. I clenched my fists, shaking with rage. The silence in the room pressed down on me, and I repeated, my voice cracking into a shout. I said take it off. Didn't you hear me? Rosie buried her face in her hands and sobbed. Ian stepped in, shielding her. His expression was disapproving. Nina, enough. My heart pounded, each beat a jagged hammer. Suppressed anger, grief, and betrayal erupted. I grabbed a shard of glass and hurled it toward Ian. Robbie lunged to stop me, but I swung at him, catching his cheek. Gasps filled the room. Guests scrambled in fear, leaving only Robbie, Ian, and Sean. Ian's face bore scratches from the glass. He glared at me. Robbie touched his own face, jaw tight. Sean had vanished. Robbie exhaled slowly. Nina, calm down. Just calm down. I ignored him. My eyes locked on Rosie, smug and teary behind Ian. Rage flared. I moved to tear the dress from her. But Ian blocked me, grabbing my wrists. Haven't you done enough? No one can deal with you like this. Dizziness hit me as Robbie wrapped his arms around me from behind, restraining me. It's just a dress. I'll buy you a new one. Enough, okay? My throat burned, my eyes raw, but I refused to cry. That dress, the last gift my brother ever gave me, wouldn't belong to anyone else. I twisted violently, biting Robbie's wrist. He swore and I clawed at him, scratching his eye. That was it. Robbie's patience broke. He slapped me hard. I staggered, collapsing to the floor. Static roared in my ears. Then, everything went silent. I lifted a trembling hand to my cheek. The skin was hot and swollen, stinging with every heartbeat. For a few seconds, I just sat there on the floor, dazed and numb. When I finally looked down, I saw thin red cuts tracing across my palm where I'd grabbed the broken glass. Only then did the pain register. The sting bled into something deeper, a hollow ache that spread through my chest. I heard someone gasp. Robbie took a hesitant step forward, reaching for me. But before he could touch me, I jerked away. I forced myself to stand, unsteady but determined, and began walking toward my room. Ian suddenly moved in front of me, blocking the path. His face was tight with emotion, caught between guilt anger, and something that looked like regret. It took a moment for my sluggish mind to piece together what he wanted to say. Then I realized it didn't matter. I met his eyes and said quietly, with startling clarity, "Let's break up. It's over. You don't have to explain." I paused, then added, "I hope you and your new girlfriend will be happy." Ian stared at me, stunned. His expression wasn't relief, it was disbelief. I couldn't tell what part of my words had shaken him. I had given him exactly what he wanted. Too tired to care, I stepped around him and climbed the stairs, shutting the door to my room behind me. I didn't turn on the lights. In the dark, I moved by memory, sitting down by the bed and picking up the framed photo that always stayed beside it. The storm inside me began to quiet. Moonlight spilled through the window, silvering the edges of the glass frame. I tried to see the faces in the photo, but my blood, dripping from my palm, streaked across it, smudging the image into a blur of red. I froze, staring at the distorted reflection until a wave of grief broke through me. It had been 5 years. 5 years since my brother died. We'd lost our parents young, so it had always been just the two of us. He'd promised he'd be there forever, when I grew up, when I grew old. He used to say we were family for life, the best kind there could ever be. But he lied. Now all I had left was this photograph, this silent proof that once, someone had loved me enough to stay. I curled up on the floor, clutching the frame to my chest. "You're gone," I whispered into the darkness. "And now they're all against me." Exhaustion sank deep into my bones. For once, sleep didn't resist me. When dreams came, they weren't of my brother. They were of Sean. Fire devoured everything. The walls, the air, the sky. Black smoke twisted upward, the heat swallowing all oxygen. The smell of burning filled my lungs until I couldn't breathe. I didn't move. I just sat there, watching the flames dance closer, thinking numbly that this was exactly what my brother must have felt. The pain was unbearable, searing through every inch of my body, but somewhere in that agony, a single thought surfaced. So this is what dying feels like. Then a voice shattered through the crackling noise. "Nina! Nina!" The door slammed open. Through the blur of smoke and sparks, Sean burst into the room. He wrapped me in a wet blanket, beating out the flames that had caught my clothes. Then he carried me outside, his breath ragged, his arms shaking. When we reached the yard, he suddenly let go. I hit the ground hard. He was drenched, gasping. His eyes were bloodshot, his expression wild. "Why didn't you run?" he shouted hoarsely. "Didn't you see the fire? Were you trying to die?" I propped myself up against a tree, my body weak, my mind somewhere far away. His words slid past me without meaning. Sean's usual calm was gone. His face was contorted with anguish and fury, tears glistening in the firelight. His voice dropped to a shaking whisper. "Sometimes, Nina, I really wish I could strangle you." Sean already knew.
He knew I had heard them that night.
He knew I'd been standing behind the door, listening to Robbie's cruel suggestion about sending me to a psychiatric ward. He knew I'd heard Ian say he wanted me to break up with him, so he wouldn't have to do it himself. He knew I'd heard his voice, calm and tired, suggesting they just find some man to marry me off to. I was a burden, an obligation none of them wanted anymore. 4 or 5 years after my brother's death, they had taken turns, taking care of me. What had started as kindness had become something else entirely, a chore, a debt they were desperate to pay off. I was their shared problem, passed from one pair of hands to the next. Robbie, Sean, and Ian, all pretending affection, all trapped by guilt. That night, as I stood outside their door, I learned everything. I learned that their so-called system of rotating boyfriends wasn't out of love or loyalty. It had been Robbie's idea from the start. After my brother's death, I had fallen apart. I didn't eat, didn't speak, didn't want to live. So Robbie, terrified of losing me too, came up with a plan. They would use romance as a distraction. He would go first. He'd make me fall for him, blur the lines between comfort and love, and anchor me to him so I wouldn't break completely. But once my dependency became too much, he couldn't handle it. He started pulling away, flirting with other girls, provoking fights until I inevitably ended it. Then Sean would take over. He was gentle, patient, the perfect savior. I'd run to him, and he'd promise stability. But after 2 years, even he began to unravel. That's when Ian took his turn. One by one, they kept the cycle going, each pretending it was love, while secretly counting the days until they could escape. And I, lost in my grief, never saw it.
Until that night.
The shock left me cold, trembling. Sean must have realized I'd heard. He followed me when I ran. So he tried to fix it his way. The fire, the one that almost killed me, he started it. It was supposed to be controlled, just dangerous enough to scare me, to make me confront my trauma. He'd arranged for someone else to save me, hoping I'd latch onto them instead, finally freeing him and the others. A perfect plan, except for one flaw. I didn't follow the script. Instead of waiting where he expected, I hid. If Sean hadn't found me in time, I would have died. Now, sitting beside me under the smoke-filled sky, he was crying. His tears fell freely, his face crumpled with guilt. And I just stared, hollow. Why was he the one crying? He was the one who wanted me gone. The one who planned everything. The one who said he wanted to strangle me. I wasn't the one who should be crying. The night air was heavy with the stench of burned wood. The last embers faded to ash, and the world fell quiet. I swallowed, the words heavy on my tongue. Sean, I said softly, go live your own life. You don't have to look after me anymore. If my existence was that painful for him, then I would release him from it. I turned my face away, my voice steady as I added, the next time we meet, we'll be strangers. I made a decision. It was time to start living for myself, even if it meant being completely alone. The first step was clearing my home of Rosie and her mother. I expected resistance, maybe even a scene, so I hired a few security guards just in case. Surprisingly, Rosie complied without a fight. The guards went through her things, reclaiming everything she'd taken from me, including items I'd thrown away. Not a word of protest. Her mother, meanwhile, had been absent for months, and the termination notice went unanswered. That was fine. Their chapter in my life was over. From the second-floor landing, I watched Rosie gather her belongings. Before leaving, she paused, looking up at me with a knowing smile that didn't reach her eyes. Maybe we'll meet again soon, sis, she said, her voice thick with unspoken meaning. I frowned, dismissing it as an empty threat. After a short break, I returned to my university routine. I blocked Sean, Robbie, and Ian from all forms of contact. When I crossed paths with them on campus, I ignored them completely, walking past as if they were strangers. Finally, I entered the counseling office. Kian Archer was seated behind his desk, looking up as though he'd been waiting for me. When our eyes met, a warm smile spread across his face. I'm glad you chose me for your session, Nina, he said softly. Hearing him call me by name again made a shiver run down my spine. I didn't correct him. Talking wasn't on my agenda today. He adjusted his glasses and began speaking, calm and patient, but I didn't engage, staring off into space while curled on the sofa. A soft sound drew my attention. A small plate had appeared on the table, adorned with a slice of cream cake and a few snacks. If you'd rather not talk, Kian said gently. Maybe some tea? The sight of the cake stirred a memory. My brother had managed my sweets carefully, keeping logs, even training as a chef to prevent me from sneaking treats. After his death, I hadn't touched anything sweet for 5 years. Time to move on, I told myself. I picked up the fork. For the rest of the session, I ate silently while Kian worked at his desk. There was no conversation, only a strange, peaceful rhythm between us. As the session ended, I rose to leave. Nina, Kian called softly. He removed his glasses, revealing deeper, more expressive eyes. The little mole near his eye hinted at an underlying sadness. I'll look forward to seeing you again, he said, but unfortunately, this will be our last session.
He paused.
I'm resigning. I walked in a daze, almost stepping into traffic. A boy grabbed my arm just in time. When I turned, he blushed and waved off my thanks. Then, hesitantly, he spoke. I know this is sudden, but I really like you, Nina. Could you give me a chance? Surprised, my lips parted before I could think. Okay, I said. The boy froze, disbelief written across his face. Before he could respond, a tall figure stepped between us. Robbie glared, his voice a low growl.
Go.
Don't even think about it. The boy scuttled away. Robbie turned to me, eyes blazing. When did you become so easy? I looked at him blankly. Does it matter to you? He had no reply. I turned, ignoring Sean behind me, and walked past as if they were obstacles on the sidewalk. Sean's voice followed me, soft and pleading. Nina, are you still angry? We overstepped. You can yell, hit us, do whatever you want, but don't ignore us. I didn't stop. Robbie grabbed my wrist, his face a mask of impatient frustration. Fine, I apologize. I shouldn't have badmouthed you. Happy? But you can't be completely blameless. Sometimes you're impossible. Who else could deal with you? The apology was false. The irritation was real. Sean shot him a warning look, and Robbie fell silent. I pulled my hand free gently. My heart felt numb, frozen against any strong emotion. Any attachment I had for them was gone. I never asked you for anything, I said flatly. For a moment, they had seemed like saviors, lifting me from grief. But in the end, they couldn't carry the weight. They saved me, then abandoned me. They gave hope, then crushed it. The silence stretched. Robbie averted his gaze. Sean's face was pale, open with unspoken words I didn't want to hear. Then a car pulled up beside me. The window rolled down, revealing Kian Archer's kind, handsome face. Need a ride? He asked, his smile calm and warm. The ride home was quiet. Kian dropped me off in front of my house, and I stepped out without a word. Nina, he called hesitantly, as if unsure whether to speak. I have a private practice. If you ever need counseling again, you can find me there. I turned slowly, my expression unreadable. There's no need. Since you've resigned, Mr. Archer, you shouldn't concern yourself with former students. I was sick, yes, but I wasn't helpless. Pity was useless, and when it ran out, no one stayed. I pushed open my door, and immediately sensed trouble. In the living room, several figures rose from the sofa.
Ian,
Rosie, and Mr. Davies, the company manager my brother had hired. Seeing Ian and Rosie together churned my stomach. Nina, don't misunderstand, Ian said quickly. I brought her here because there's something important you need to know. Rosie, he claimed, was my sister, a real blood relative. But the truth was grim. She was the illegitimate child my father had hidden, and she and her mother had brazenly moved in with me. I had assumed their shared last name was coincidence. Now, disgust clawed at me. Mr. Davies handed me a file. Miss Forrester, this contains the paternity test Rosie submitted and your father's will. She is entitled to half the family assets and company profits. I held the documents, disbelief washing over me. It was real. A humorless laugh escaped me. My parents' seemingly perfect lives had been a lie. My father had another family. Rosie and her mother had planned everything to gain access to my home. Rosie's triumphant smile didn't help. You can't kick me out anymore, sis, she said, glancing around. Half of this house belongs to me. My fists clenched. In your dreams, I snarled. Ian tried to calm me, appealing to reason. Her mother had cancer and recently passed. They never wanted conflict. They hid the will to protect you. Then she can die too, I shot back. Ian froze, his face darkening. Nina, I ignored him, turning to Mr. Davies. If my brother were alive, would you dare bring her here? He averted his gaze. We can discuss asset division later. Rosie collected her purse and followed Mr. Davies, throwing me one last taunting glance. Since you love this house so much, you can have it. Daddy left plenty of other properties. My head swam. I hadn't expected this. I might lose everything. Not just the money, but my brother's legacy. Ian tried again, gently. I can help you with the division. You'll keep what matters to you. And I'm still your boyfriend. Can you unblock me? I stared at the floor. Get out, I repeated. Then a knock sounded. Kian Archer stood in the doorway. Calm, composed, indifferent to Ian's hostility. I'm here to help, he said politely. I nodded. Get him out. Without hesitation, Kian struck. Ian hit the floor with a sickening crack. Kian pinned him, patted his cheek, and said smoothly, barging into a woman's home is predator behavior. Then he escorted Ian out. Kian returned, rolling up his sleeves, his smile gentle again. You might be hungry. Let's fix that. Dinner was quiet. 3 perfectly prepared dishes, and a soup waited for me. Beside my plate lay a business card with Kian Archer's company address. I thought your practice was private, I said. He smiled, offering a flimsy explanation. It's inside my CEO office. Efficient saves rent. If you ever need help, you can come anytime. A few days later, I found myself in his office. Kian sat in a tailored suit, young but confident, warm and trustworthy. He slid a file across the desk. You don't have to share your inheritance with her. I opened it, heart racing. The documents revealed the truth. My father's will divided assets among me, my brother, and Rosie. But my brother had inherited everything when I was a minor, rebuilt the company after bankruptcy, and placed all new assets in my name. Everything I own now was mine. Rosie had no claim. Kian smirked. If she wants an inheritance, we can give her your father's debt. I couldn't help smiling, but halfway through, the weight of gratitude hit me. He had solved a problem that had trapped me for years. Why help me? I asked. He hesitated, then looked up with a soft, complicated smile. Because you're my student. And my most important patient. I have a responsibility to you. I sent a copy of the file to Mr. Davies. No reply. Rosie, on the other hand, called almost immediately. Her earlier triumph had vanished, replaced by fury. I'm only asking for what's mine. Why are you fighting me? She shrieked. If I can't have a good life, neither can you. Don't forget, Caleb was my brother too. He left no will. So I deserve a share. She slammed the phone down and filed a lawsuit. This time I didn't panic. Hidden away in my study was an old document, one that would ensure Rosie didn't stand a chance. I intended to handle this myself. As the court date neared, Kian appeared at my door. I've already hired a lawyer for you, he said confidently. Trust me, you'll win. His eyes swept over me. Did you just wake up? My hair was a mess. I was in an oversized t-shirt and shorts, clutching a pillow. He glanced at the bright afternoon sun and sighed. Rolling up his sleeves, he muttered, 3 in the afternoon, not sure if this counts as lunch or dinner. What do you want me to make? I curled on the sofa, watching him move around the kitchen. Everything he did felt instinctive. He always reached for the right utensils, opened the correct cupboards. It should have been a calm summer afternoon. The scent of my favorite dishes filled the air. Then the doorbell rang. I tried to ignore it, but it persisted, frantic. Kian, still in his pink teddy bear apron, went to the door. The moment it opened, a fist shot toward his face. Kian blocked it instantly. Robbie pushed inside. Nina. Peeking from behind the sofa, I saw him glance at my oversized t-shirt, then at Kian's apron. His expression darkened. Are you living together? He shouted. Have you lost your mind? Anger surged through me. Sean stepped in, offering a large envelope. Nina, look at this first. Robbie's right in one way. This Kian has been targeting you from the start. He's not who you think he is. I tore it open. Photos, documents, everything revealing Kian's obsession over me for 5 years. Robbie grabbed a handful of the photos, tossing them at Kian. This guy's a psycho. Stalking, taking secret pictures, pretending to be a lecturer. Nina, you can't. I dropped the remaining papers and cut him off. So what? They froze. I shrugged. So, he's a little obsessed. I'm not exactly stable myself. And, as you can see, we're dating. Any problem with that? Kian, now officially my boyfriend, looked conflicted but said nothing, tacitly agreeing. Are you crazy? Robbie demanded. Nina, you're just saying this to spite me, right? Sean pleaded with me. Don't use him to get back at us. None of them believed me. Ian, still harboring resentment, lunged at Kian. Stay away from my girlfriend. I'd had enough. I called a security team I had stationed outside. They removed all 3 men. Locks changed, permanent security in place. The front door closed, and silence finally returned. The day of the hearing arrived. My lawyer, top tier and confident, prepared the files. Kian sat in the gallery, calm and composed. Rosie's case relied entirely on her blood tie to my father. But she had no idea. Caleb Forrester was not my father's biological son. His real name was Caleb Thorne. His mother had been my mother's best friend, seeking protection for her child years ago. My parents raised him as their own, changing his name and taking him abroad. Later, when I was born, Caleb's upbringing continued under their care. By law, Rosie's claim was meaningless. My brother had already transferred all assets to me. I had complete legal control. Rosie collapsed into disbelief. Impossible. This is impossible, she screamed. You forged it. Caleb is dead. How can you prove he wasn't my real brother? She had no one to turn to. Ian recoiled from her, disgust in his eyes. Why? She demanded. You promised me, Ian said coldly. You promised to treat Nina like family.
And now?
All for money. He turned and left, leaving Rosie shattered. I was done with their games. Linking my arm with Kian's, I leaned my head on his shoulder. I smiled sweetly at the 3 remaining witnesses. Didn't you say you hoped I'd find a man and get married soon so you could be free? I looked at them, my smile widening. Well, you don't have to worry anymore. I've found him. And when we get married, don't forget to come to the wedding. Sean's face went pale, and the others weren't much better. For the first time in weeks, Robbie wasn't angry at me. "That's not what we meant," he stammered, lips trembling.
Too late.
"It doesn't matter what you meant," I said, my voice cold and final. "I'm taking you at your word. Thank you for taking care of me all these years. But from now on, stay out of my life and my boyfriend's." Kian's car was waiting. We drove in silence, the city passing by like a blur. He stole a glance at me through the rearview mirror, cautious. "Nina, about us." "Stop the car." He braked sharply and pulled over. I unbuckled my seatbelt without looking at him. Confused, he asked, "Did I do something wrong?" I didn't answer. I slammed my fist against the door. "Unlock it. I'm getting out."
A click.
I pushed the door open. Kian's voice, finally stripped of pretense, called softly, "Nina, come back." I froze, not turning around. He stepped out and stood before me, removing his glasses. The soft smile was gone. Shadows from the trees overhead fell across his face. He was close enough that I felt the warmth of his breath. His hand hovered near my head, then gently brushed my cheek instead. "I'm sorry," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. "I never meant to put you through this." Tears welled immediately in my eyes. He explained everything. 5 years ago, his biological father, a ruthless, powerful man, had tried to make Kian his heir. Kian refused, and his father taught him a cruel lesson. The men with explosives had been sent by him. Kian had been burned over most of his body, barely surviving. His father staged a corpse in the wreckage and spirited him away. To the world, Caleb Forrester was dead. The man who lived was Kian Thorne. I didn't dare ask how he escaped. When he told me about needing skin grafts over his entire body, my tears fell freely. He cupped my face, thumbs brushing away the tears, attempting a reassuring smile. "Don't cry. I'm okay now, see?" I couldn't stop. He had been by my side since birth, and we had been torn apart for 5 years. My initial resentment dissolved when I realized his suffering had been far worse than mine. Then, his lips pressed against mine. I was too stunned to respond. Kian rested his forehead against mine, anxiety deep in his eyes. "Is this weird? Disgusting? You must have known who I was for a while. So, what you said about me being your boyfriend, was any of it real?" He had raised me, cared for me, feared his feelings were wrong. Afraid I'd mistake dependency for love, terrified of the truth of his own heart. I didn't answer with words. I deepened the kiss, letting my actions speak. His arms wrapped around me, crushing me in a way that felt both terrifying and comforting. He kissed my forehead, my eyes, my cheeks, holding me as if letting go were impossible. "I'm back," he said, voice thick with a solemn vow. "And I'll never let anyone separate us again."